I just happened to turn it on. We got the pay-per-view. It was the Survivor Series. And I watched it, and I remember that night. I remember the Undertaker debuted. I didn't know what really that meant at 10 years old at the time. But I was kind of hooked. I watched it more sporadically from 1990 to 96. And it was pretty often enough to kind of know what was going on. But 96, the Undertaker's story right at the beginning of the year with Diesel, Kevin Nash kind of hooked me deeper for some reason. There was something about it. Kind of that change that was already coming for the attitude and stuff, that was all starting right then. And then the Mankind, Mick Foley came in, and I was hooked because it was brutal. I'd never seen that before, and I actually thought even, I guess at 16, I thought it was more real than it was. And I knew, like, there's no way they're doing some of these matches that they're doing without getting, like, hurt. I'd never really paid attention to it. Like, nowadays it's kind of, people talk about it, that what they call the kayfabe was all kind of in the past, and characters and development. But that's one thing about the Undertaker. He always protected that character, and you never knew much about him. But 96 and 97, where he won the championship again, and then the Attitude Era started. I started watching it every show that came on, from Shotgun Saturday. It was Raw's War. And then the War Zone was on Tuesday. It was an hour each show. And then it changed to Raw, again as War. And just all the changes. SmackDown coming. I mean, I've watched The Undertaker. And I just wanted to say thanks to him. He made the show. I mean, all the other guys did too. And the girls, the women, it was fun. I love the characters. But The Undertaker's always the one I felt the closest to. He's the one that made me actually want to get into wrestling. And in 1997 and 98, I was 17 and turned 18 in 98. I let the local wrestling company, I kind of let them know. My uncle was friends with them, and excuse me, they said, after talking to them for a while, you're kind of small, you should try to be a referee, and that upset me. And I knew, obviously, this was going to be more difficult than I thought. But anyway, I got a little bit of schooling in wrestling before I said, you know what, my friend wants to do it, Adam, and some other friends, and I said, you know what, we're just going to do kind of a backyard thing. That was when it had taken off, and we didn't have the big violent barbed wire kind of death match stuff going on. It was just like on a mattress. We were trying to do basic moves that we had been taught, and I had taught and learned, and we try to be careful, and you could see for a period of time as it built up. But again, it was because of the Undertaker, and I even had character in it was the KWF I had. I called him the Undertaker. Before the KWF, I kind of would always mention, the Soul Taker. I called him that. And his real brother came in. It was the Embalmer. We had like a version of Kane, too, and someone else. For the Egyptian, was Lord of the Dead, Amubis, or something like that. I don't know. But they were like the four brothers of darkness in the KWF. And it was all thanks to Undertaker. And I'm not saying I was into all that dark and gothic stuff. Though I love the style and everything. It's awesome. I didn't live the life, and I wasn't a biker like Mark Calloway is in real life. I'm not saying it's all he is, but it was just, man, his character, the character, the way he portrayed himself on TV really got to me, and I loved it. And I just remember all those matches. Like I said, from the debut up through the Boiler Room Brawl and the Buried Alive match, and then the Revenge match. It was Revenge of the Taker, when Taker, I think he ended up burning Paul Bearer's face after Mankind had burnt Taker's face. That story, got into that, to the Kane's coming, Kane's debut, how they ended up fighting and becoming the Brothers of Destruction, and turning on each other back and forth over the years, and watching The Undertaker become the American Badass, and Big Evil, and then being buried alive again by Kane, of all people, against Vince, and coming back as the Dead Man again for the rest of his career, minus the Boneyard match this year. And then, of course, last night, November 22nd, 2020, was exactly 30 years to the day they debuted, and he retired. Anyway, I've let this run on long enough, but I just wanted to get something out there to say what Undertaker meant to me, what the matches meant to me, basically, why I wanted to get into it for a while. Stupidly, because I did hurt myself. I was always flying around being silly, not really knowing what I was doing. And I've since then seen it, stayed, listened to the stories, and know these guys really do put their lives and their bodies on the line every time they get into the wrestling ring, and I appreciate that. If you haven't seen The Last Ride, the Undertaker's documentary, you need to. You can see what all those years did to him and the surgeries. He talks about them, and plus you kind of get to see one of the hip surgery he had. And all I can say is I respect all those guys, all those women. They're tough, and thank you. But this has ran long enough. Like I said, if you watched this long, I appreciate it. But it's just kind of a log for anybody that wants to see what Taker meant to me, kind of get an insight into what he's done, whatever, man. It's just for me to look at too, and to say, I'll never forget those 30 years. I was 10 years old when he debuted that night in 1990. I'm 40 now. 30 years of my life, literally pre-teen, teen years, 20s and 30s, all filled up with the Undertaker always being there. It's going to be different with him not being there. But again, Undertaker, Mark Calloway, if you ever watch this, if anybody that knows him watches this, I know all the fans feel the same, but thank you. This is me, Jimmy Presley from East Tennessee, saying, thank you. I'm lucky enough to have gotten to see you 4 times in your different incarnations. The last time was actually in Knoxville in 2005. It's been 15 years. He's been here since then, but I saw him against Eddie Guerrero just a few minutes before Eddie died, and that was the first time I'd gotten to see Eddie, even though I had been to a lot of WWE shows. But to see him against Undertaker, those were 2 of my favorites. It was just like fantastic, and Taker had come back as the dead man the year before. It was like, thanks for that. I needed that. Man, I respect those guys. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Undertaker. Thanks for all the years, and take it easy, be careful, be safe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.